Know what your goal is. And I don't mean your goal on social media. Yeah, that's important. But do you know what? What's your business goal? One of the first questions I ask anybody when we're doing any coaching or I'm doing a workshop at a conference or event is to ask this key question. What's your business goal? Well, hello there, and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Sam Hind, and today I'm going to be talking about something maybe a little bit confusing, but definitely well worth taking advantage of. And that is what you must do before you even post. Do you know, I see so many people wasting so much time on social media trying to get it to work for them by throwing stuff at the wall and waiting to see what sticks. The thing is that whilst it takes a little bit of time to prepare and get ready, it actually saves you so much time in the long run. I'm going to talk to you today about my super quick tips to prepare and get ready. And essentially, I'm going to talk to you about what you have to do before you post. What is more important, and here's where maybe the little confusing part comes in, but what is more important than even showing up? Yes, I said it. And if you've heard me do any training, you've heard me talk about the importance of consistency and showing up. And that is so true. But showing up in the wrong capacity to the wrong people at the wrong time on the wrong platform with the wrong intentions is not going to help anyone, especially you. So before you even show up, why don't you listen into this episode and hopefully I can share with you some super quick tips that will be absolutely game changing when it comes to your social media content strategy. So let's dive on in. I'm super excited to be sharing this episode with you, mostly because I know that this is going to prevent you some of the pains that so many people before you have experienced. I do recommend grabbing out your pen and paper and jotting some of these things down, but I really want to encourage you of one thing. As you listen to this episode, if there's something I talk about here and you think, that is definitely something that I probably need to action, do differently, investigate, then please take action off the back of this episode. One of the things that can be really problematic when we do learning is that we often take on all the knowledge and then we kind of put it to the side. And I've heard the quote or saying, I should say, shelf help, which I think is just so true. You know, when you buy books or you do learning or you go to presentations and you hear people tell you all this really valuable, important content, but then you never do anything with it. It sits on the shelf and it gathers dust. Today is all about implementation. I'm going to give you some really quick tips that are going to help you. Each of these in themselves is an activity. But as I go through them, if there's something that stands out to you, just take one thing from this episode and implement it. And I can promise you, these in themselves, each of them is game changing. We have a training on each of these, at least one training. In some cases, we've broken it down into 2 or 3 or even 4 modules inside of our membership courses because these things are so critically important. And the thing is, when we built our Academy membership, which is our signature social media mastery program, we spent more time on the first would be the first 15 modules, which were the setup process before we even got to the content component. Why? Because content can be fun, it can be creative, but it can be a massive waste of time when done for the wrong reasons. So let's dive on in and have a little bit of a look at what are some of the things you need to be thinking out before you even post. So number 1 is this. Know what your goal is. And I don't mean your goal on social media. Yeah, that's important. But do you know what? What's your business goal? One of the first questions I ask anybody when we're doing any coaching or I'm doing a workshop at a conference or event is to ask this key question. What's your business goal? Now, why does this matter? Well, your social media strategy is directly attributed to what you want to achieve in your business, is it not? And yet, for so many of us, we don't even align the two. So, the first thing we've got to think about is where are we going with our business? Now, when I ask this question of people in one-on-one calls, often the answer is something really what I call fluffy. It's a fluffy response, which is something like, I want to grow my business this year, or I want to get more people in my team. And I really encourage those people. And if you've got an answer like that today, I'm going to encourage you with this too. Get super specific. If you don't know where you're headed, it's like having a bow and arrow in your arms and a target you can't see. How are you going to be able to shoot that arrow at the right target when you don't even know where the target is or what you're aiming for? And I have had some of my most frustrating challenges in my own business at those times when I didn't have not only a specific goal, but there are two key components to having a specific goal, and that is you need to know when you intend to achieve it and how you're going to know when you get there. Saying something like, I want to grow my business, how do you know when you've achieved that? I love what Tony Robbins says to anybody that says to him, I want more money. And he goes, here's $2, go away, done. You don't want just $2. And likewise, you don't want to just grow your business a little bit. You want to grow your business a particular amount. So get clear. What's the amount you want to grow by? And the second part to that is, how are you going to measure it? So how are you going to know when you achieve that goal? There's nothing worse than thinking you might have got there, but not really knowing, and then not having the satisfaction of going, yes, I did it. So what does this have to do with your social media? Everything. Your social media is a tool that you use to achieve your goal. So we've got to make sure that when we use our social media strategy, we're directly attributing that to our business goal. How and when and where we're going to achieve that, and how is social media going to tie in and help us do it? So when you're looking at the right platform, the audience that you're going to be speaking to, and most importantly then, the content you're creating, you're asking yourself, is this strategy going to move me closer towards my goal, or is it completely unrelated? It'll make a big, big difference to the strategy that you implement when it comes to your social media content. The next thing is this, and if you've heard me do any training, you will know what's about to come next. Here's the next tip. Know who. Know who you're talking to. Know who you're reaching out to. Now, remember this. All social media platforms, it doesn't matter which one you're using, have got an algorithm, a program that operates in the background of that platform that knows everything there is to know about its users. It knows what their interests are, what their dislikes are. It knows what their demographic is. It knows how long they use a platform and how they use it. It knows fundamentally how to keep them on the platform. It's going to be very, very hard for you to create good quality content that algorithm is going to show to people if you don't know about them. The thing is, every piece of content you put on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, it doesn't matter where you put it. Each of those platforms is assessing and filtering that post, that piece of content you created, and deciding who to show it to, where and when. So if you don't know what they care about, if you don't know what they're interested in, if you don't know what they're going to look at, what conversations they want to have, it's going to be very hard for you to create content and posts that are going to get their attention. So this is the other thing about this. As you get to know who your audience is, you've also got to consider those questions that we all get asked so often, which is, what platform should I be using? What time of day should I be posting? What sort of post should I be putting out there? My answer to all of those questions will always be the same. Who is it that you're delivering those posts to? It will change the time of day that you get their attention. It'll change the platform that you use. And most importantly, it will change the conversations that you have. So when it comes to having a conversation on Facebook, and what I mean by that is you want to have a thread that runs through all of the content that you create. So get really clear on that. Know who it is that you're speaking to, where they are, and when you're going to be posting for that reason. And that then brings me to the next tip, which is all very important before you even post, and that is have a plan. Now, the plan is obviously something that's going to look like a number of different things. There are a number of processes and strategies you want to use here, but I'm going to really simplify this right down. What are you planning to post? When are you planning to post it? And how are you planning to post it? So once you get to know who you're speaking to, the next thing you've got to be thinking about is, what platform is going to be my core focus? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Twitter? Where am I going to be putting my focus? And that can't just be which platform you like the best. It's got to be the platform that's going to help you best communicate with your ideal customer. The next thing is, what's going to be the core thread to the conversation that flows through all of the content I create? So, to give you a little bit of an example of this, obviously I teach social media. That's the core to what we do. That's the common thread. So, anyone who comes to any of my social media content will be able to see that the core thread or conversation with Sam or Oksana is going to be social media tips and training to grow your direct selling business. It's not confusing, it's straightforward. You can see it everywhere. But it doesn't mean it's the only thing I post about or the only conversation I have. I also understand what are some of the things I have in common with my audience. Most of you guys are parents. Most of you are running your own business, even if it's a hobby business or a side hustle. Most of you have got an interest in things like, home decor or looking after your home or plants or even fur babies. Lots of you have got fur babies. Lots of you also have had the same experience as me of feeling left behind, overwhelmed, like you don't belong, and not knowing what to do next, particularly when it comes to social media and business. These are all common threads of conversations I know I can have with my audience. But I know my core conversation is the social media content, the social media tips and strategies. So I will make that the fundamental conversation that flows through everything. But occasionally I'll go off on a tangent. I'll share a little bit of a behind the scenes from a parenting point of view. I'll share a little bit about my family. I might share a little bit about the latest avocado tree that I grew from a seed or something like that, because I know it helps people get to know me and it helps me get to know my audience, and I know it's a common interest. So it doesn't mean that you don't have these other conversations, but it does mean you pick a fundamental conversation that links everything together. I was chatting with one of our members the other day, and she was really struggling with this process. And she said, look, I'm here for health and wellness. And she said, I just want to talk about all things health and wellness because I want to make sure that I'm tailoring my content for everybody. And I said, this is your greatest mistake. There's so many different elements to health and wellness. And that can in itself get really confusing. I said, what do you know about your target audience? And we spent a little bit of time looking at this together. And eventually she said, well, I guess one of the things that I notice is very interesting is I've recently been through menopause or started going through menopause. And she said, I've been having a lot of conversations with my customers about their journey through menopause as well. And she said, I've been able to share some of my experience and my learnings with them to help them. It's only loosely related to the product, but she said it just seems to be the common conversation I'm having with most of my customers. She said, I really notice that seems to be something I'm passionate about, that, I've got some knowledge in that space, but most importantly, it's something we have in common. I said, great, make that your common conversation. Attract more people like that, because we all know there's plenty of people out there, and every woman at some point in their life is going to go through menopause and ask those questions. Who's been through this? Who else is like me? What do I need to know that I don't know? And so she changed up her content and she started to make that her common thread. Most importantly, she shared her journey. And as she did that, she started getting followers following her in droves. She got so much interaction from people because suddenly people were joining the common conversation. They knew if they went to this page, this is what the conversation was going to be about. And that for them was very interesting. I've also had people do something really similar with things like fermentation, people who are in the cooking side of things, health, wellness, and cooking, and then they're focused on fermentation above all else. You attract a very specific group of people. They know what the common conversation is, and you're able to relate to the right people with your content. So have a plan. Know what is your common conversation going to be? Where are you going to have that conversation? What platform are you going to use? And then you want to ask yourself the question, when will I be posting this content? So one of the most important things to your plan will be your productivity, managing your time. Social media is an absolute rabbit warren and it is a thief of time. You know what I'm talking about because if you've ever watched one reel, no one in history ever watched one reel, you pulled yourself out of that rabbit hole maybe 40, 50 minutes later and you realized how much time you just wasted, right? We don't want to do that. On top of that, you can fall into the trap of the content rabbit warren, which is when you start to use platforms like Oxano Social or Canva. And there's so many fun, creative things you can do in there. You can get more caught up in making the post look good than what you're actually there to achieve, which is what? Your business goal. So, you want to take yourself back and be very, very protective of your time with social media. So, with all of our members inside of our courses, I always tell them allocate a specific amount of time once per week for your content creation and schedule ahead of time. So pick a day that makes most sense for you. Maybe it's Friday afternoon after you've finished all your work so you can go into the weekend knowing it's done. Maybe it's Monday morning when you're super fresh, you've had your relax for the weekend and you're ready to plan for the week. Whatever that needs to look like for you, sit down and have a window of time. My suggestion is if you are new to this process, allocate a 3-hour block to create your content for the next 7 days. Once you're a bit more practiced at this, you'll be able to do it in maybe 2 hours or possibly even less. But do not break that time down. What I mean by that is don't say I'm going to do 30 minutes one day, 30 minutes another, and 30 minutes the day after this, and maybe an hour over here. It won't work. The reason it won't work is because you need to get into a bit of a groove. Your social media content needs to flow from one post to the next. You need to think about the strategy and you need to consider what you've put before and what's going to go after it. But also, of course, what your audience. So you want it to be a journey that you're taking them on. When you haphazardly post content and when you're definitely not thinking strategically, which can happen when we spend a bit of time here and a bit of time there, we do it on the fly, which means often strategy goes out the window and we start posting for the sake of it. And I don't want you to do that. So pick a block of time where you can sit down, look at your goal, look at your strategy, plan your content out, and just plan the next 7 days ahead. Use platforms like Oxano Social to schedule ahead of time so you know your content is done and you don't have to think about it. Now, that doesn't mean we don't show up on our social media for the next week, but it means you can just check in for 5-10 minutes, see if any comments have been put on a post, and then get on with your day and do other things that are really important as well. So allocate a little bit of time each week, protect that time, and know this. A single post shouldn't take you any more than 15 minutes to create once you know what the strategy is that you're going for. So be very, very careful. If you create a post and you've spent more than 15 minutes writing your caption or making the picture look just right, stop, get up, go for a walk for a sec, come back and start working on a different post. Come back to that one later because this is the core to this whole thing. We are speaking not to computers. We're not speaking to phones. We're speaking to human beings. So being real and raw and relatable is so much more important. I'm sure you've heard me say this before. I'm a real believer in being the true, authentic you. And I know that you would never stop and think for 15 minutes before you had a conversation with someone about your life, your business, your product, what you would say next. You know how to talk to people. So use language you would use and that should just flow for you. So don't overthink it. Sometimes simpler is much, much better. So guys, they are 3 really super quick tips. The very last thing I'm going to give you is a bonus tip and it's this. Know how you plan to measure your success. When it comes to your social media content, you don't want to post on the fly. You don't want to throw stuff at the wall and wait to see what sticks. So ask yourself this question before you even post. How will I know and what is going to be my measure for success on social media? So ask yourself the question, is it going to be people engaging with my content? Is it going to be one-to-one conversations? Is it going to be the amount of followers I have on my page? All of these things have merit, but some of them are more important to others depending on what your business goals are. So know in advance, what are you here to achieve? And even set yourself some little micro goals on social media as well. This week, I'm going to aim at increasing my engagement by 10%. Or this week, I'm going to aim at getting 3 new followers and I'm going to do some reach outs to get to know them just a little better. just remember, if that's going to be your option, that you do it appropriately. But just make sure you are going to measure your success. There is no point doing things for the sake of it. So just a little bit of thought in advance before you go creating your social media content could save you oodles and oodles of time, heartache, and frustration. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Of course, if you've loved this episode or any of our episodes, please hit that subscribe button if you are watching us on YouTube. And of course, you can subscribe or follow us on any of the Apple or the podcast channels as well. We would love to have you join us in our family and continue on this journey. We have got some incredible guests that come in here and some amazing content that we're always here to provide you to support you in this industry that we are so passionate about. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please share this episode if you enjoyed it with another friend in the industry. But have an amazing week, and I look forward to seeing you on the podcast again next week. That's it from me. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.